Okay, so hey there, and big welcome back to Default Global. Here's we're all about chatting with global first entrepreneurs, tech leaders, HR professionals from all corners of the globe. And today we're super excited to have Prabhat Jha, the mastermind behind the engineering team at DataStax in house. So, Prabhat, it is awesome to have you with us today.
Well, thank you, Vit, for the nice welcome. I don't think I'm the mastermind of the data stack engineering, but I'm definitely one part of it. So I'm happy to be here and happy to share my insights here.
Awesome, awesome. Prabhat, you've been part of several startups, and you co-founded different businesses. And I know that you run this nonprofit organization, and of course, you're leading the engineering team at DataStax, right? So your journey is quite impressive, and I would like to start with that. Can you give us maybe a quick intro about yourself and maybe share your career story?
Yeah, happy to. So I was born in Nepal, and Nepal is one of the a third world countries in the world, which means the infrastructure is not there, and especially the village where I grew up. Forget about computer, we didn't even have electricity, right? So, and I wanted to study computer science, obviously. So luckily, I found the help, the needed help from my friends and family to be able to come to the states and study. And I went through the typical immigrant path of like going to the going to the school, getting the degrees, finding a job, and things like that. And every software professionals ultimately want to do their own startup, and I was no different. So that was a big risk as an immigrant to take that, and but I'm so glad I did it. So what happened is that after I finished my university, I ended up working at like Red Hat, which was one of the like which was and it still is the leading companies, right? And that's where I fell in love with how to develop software in the open source world, how to work with the remote teams, because JBoss Red at that time was they had the engineering folks working from Europe, Latin America, Asia, everywhere. And that's when I understood the like how to work with the teams across the globe, how to lead that team. I was fortunate enough to lead the team very early on in my career. And as I was building the team globally, especially in Europe, I realized that what worked for me was being very transparent about like kind of people you need in your team, what kind of culture would be. And not when I say being transparent, not to tell them all the good things, but also the not good part of working for your team and things like that, right? So that has sort of like stayed with me for a while. Yeah.
And that's awesome. So you work in different startups, right? Yeah, like you mentioned, you work in big tech companies, each with their own focus, I guess. You also been this really involved in this open source projects, and now you work with a lot with the AI technologies, right?
Mhm.
So how have this experience shape your view on leading engineering teams, especially
Yeah.
when we're talking about like a global and remote teams?
Yeah, so definitely I can give you two very concrete examples. So when I did for my first startup, which was about building a mobile application performance monitoring solutions, think like Datadog, New Relic for mobile apps. And obviously it was my co-founder and I were thinking about it. And number one, we didn't have a lot of money to build the team, and but we needed to build a product. So I reached out to my contacts back in India, Nepal, and Europe, and like who could help. And one thing I realized that um, from that experience, that the quality that we had of the quality of people like who were contributing to, there was no different from the quality of people who I had here in North America, right? That's something I didn't know in the beginning. I was like, maybe it's going to be cheaper to do it, but maybe the quality may not be there. That was not the case, like in most cases. Number one. Second thing I also realized later on, and this is something I optimized and learned, is that when you're working with folks that are globally distributed, remote, and they're not working with you in the same time zone and things like that, you have to be very clear in the requirements definition. Because you don't get too many FaceTime to work with engineers. So if you leave something that's not well defined, then that usually slows things down, because they're not working in the same time zone. So what we ended up doing later on, and that happened with my first startup as well as the second startup, that I started becoming a lot more concrete on what was the job to be done, what was exactly the skill set I needed, and setting the expectation right from the beginning with the milestones and things like that. Because if you make it too fluid, then the things drag, and then you're not happy with the delivery and all this stuff. So that's the one thing we did. But once we got that out and we found the right people, regardless of where they are, whether in the Latin America or Europe or Asia, we found that good quality engineers working on this.
And I also know that you run this nonprofit organization, what is called Eejot,
Yeah,
Eejot,
yeah,
Eejot,
Eejot,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And you help students from Nepal with this computer skills, and that's pretty amazing. In fact, that's a very good thing to do, because because I was born and raised in Ukraine, right? So I know how hard it is to get those cool tech jobs in Silicon Valley companies,
yeah.
right? So I guess you're doing really really cool stuff there. So in a big step towards connecting those guys with global tech opportunities, I guess. So with that, what uh, how exactly you help those guys? How exactly you
Yeah,
help students? Do you
yeah.
help them
Well,
to find jobs in the U.S. market, or how does it work?
yeah, well, thank you for doing your research. So the Ejot is a non-profit. So the story behind the starting that non-profit is that after I came to the States, went to the grad school, worked for Red Hat for a few years, and when I went back to my village, and it has been like 50, like almost like 10 years, I realized that my village has not changed. The kids, the high school students, and all the students, they still didn't have access to the computer and all the stuff, and here I was working in the latest technology. So we are like, what can I help to bridge that gap? So the way organization started, I took basically semi-used laptops from here with my friends. Will take that to my village and buy the generator to supply the electricity, because we didn't have the electricity still back then, right? And build this computer lab to teach high school and elementary school kids how to use computer, right? So our goal was to do the bridge the computer literacy divide, not really find to do the employment. But what happened later on with, and that surprised us as well, is that because a lot of people don't have resources to go and study into college and get higher degrees after they're done with high school, they often go to like Middle East to work as a laborer. And people who had learned how to use computer at Ejot, they were making more money, even in the Gulf countries and things like that, right? So it was more towards, so it was very uplifting to hear that, right? So, and secondary side effect of that has been that some of these people now have moved to the cities and different work, and they're working on they're working on blockchain, they're working on machine learning project, they're learning by themselves. And then not only that, they're going back to the village and teaching other kids how to do that, right? So this cycle continues. So it's been very fulfilling from that perspective, where we we are able to give chance to lots of high school students especially to use computers, so that when they go out of the village, they work somewhere, like they feel more confident about themselves, that okay, they know how this thing works.
Yeah, and that's very encouraging story, I guess. You're doing the right thing, and I really really hope that you'll succeed like even more with that nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
Um, and speaking of that, what advice would you give to talent from outside of the US who want to work for companies like DataStax? What should they do?
Yeah. So one thing I would say, having talked to these folks when I went to Nepal recently, and I met lots of engineers like who are working with the companies from Australia, United States, Europe already, and this is what I told them: like they seem to have a like a little bit of inferiority complex, that because they're not in the Silicon Valley, they're not in that, like they're not good enough. I feel like that is no longer the case. The people who study computer science in America or Europe, they are also watching the same GitHub repositories. They are watching the same YouTube videos, and getting started guides and things like that. So they have access to the same information, same technology set, same online courses that are mostly available for free on YouTube and things like that, right? So one thing I tell them, that they are not at a disadvantage with respect to having access to the resources which will help them make better. Number one. Second thing, I also recommend them that be involved with the community, right? So by that, you don't necessarily have to be like the one of the developer working on this coolest project, but like when you write your application, as you're learning new technology, be very outward, like post the code on your GitHub, share with other people, write blogs about it, so that people see you, that what you're doing, kind of things, right? A lot of time we don't like when I was growing up in my career, nobody told me about this. That means like it made it very difficult to stand out. But once you start joining the meetups, presenting what your ideas, writing about in your blogs and things like that, posting on LinkedIn, social media, everywhere. That's how you get noticed, and that's how people reach out to you, right? So being very outward focused, engaging with the open source community, that's the beauty of technology. As a Python developer, you can write code on and commit to GitHub, use some projects, and write about how you use different open source projects to build the solutions you have, right?
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
it. Just helps you stand out among the crowd, right? Because it's getting very crowded. So one
Hmm.
thing I would tell them, to not to have an inferiority complex, because you do have access to the same resources as a lot of other peoples in the world do. And second thing is, be outward. Don't think that you really have to work somewhere to gain the experience. You can gain the experience and learn from somebody else high quality code, like high quality write up, by working with the community and engaging with the community.
Hmm. Hmm. That's very good advice. In fact, um, what do you think about this cultural differences? This issue, if it is an issue at all, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so culture, I have not personally faced many cultural issues when,
Hmm.
when 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 hiring people from outside, especially at the last startup. For example, I had an engineer from Ecuador,
Hmm.
Uruguay in Latin America, right?
Hmm.
And we also had an engineer from Singapore, and they're working from all these places.
Hmm.
And I feel like these days maybe the cultural issue was there, but like they people are very open about it. They're very appreciative about different culture. They're not,
Yeah.
they don't have the negative ill will kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I had actually fun. I ended up learning Spanish because I was working with people from
Awesome.
Uruguay and all this stuff. So it helped me appreciate their culture and language and stuff better. So
Yeah.
I think culturally, from a pure cultural perspective, it's not there. From a technical and engineering perspective, I would say, I don't think it's generic. It applies to everything. Like, you need to show, like, some people have different sense of ownership about working on a project. When you are working on a project, regardless of whether it's a Silicon Valley company or something, you need to have a sense of ownership, so that you deliver the thing that you need to do on time with a quality. If you just take it as a job, then you will not get different opportunities, because you are not into the project that you're working on, right? So I felt like being remote. That's where the challenges usually are. People don't feel like the success of project is tied to their success and all this stuff. So that's the one thing I would say. When you are like when you're working with engineers, like locally in face to face, is easy to get that across. But the remote team sometimes become difficult to get that point across. That you need to deliver with a sense of urgency and quality, and you need to be part of the team kind of mindset.
Yeah, and you know what? I probably agree with you because we hire like guys in three different continents and like 22 different countries. And if you ask me about cultural fit, I would say like I guess cultural is not the right word for that. I guess it's all about like local rules, local attitudes, but not about culture because culture is something really deep. And from what I know, like values, if it is like Argentina, Ukraine, or the U.S., it's all the same. Like basic values,
Yeah.
are the same. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Hardworking people who are in Argentina, Ukraine, and slackers are here in North America as well. It's just because you are from different
100%,
countries, different culture. It's the thing, right?
hundred
Yeah,
percent,
and as things become more global, I feel like the differences between all this culture stuff is basically narrowing it down, where you feel
yeah,
comfortable working with each other a lot
hundred
more.
percent.
The
That's
language
true.
barrier is not as strong as it used to be, and people are very just they know what's happening out there.
Yeah, especially with AI help, right? That's not a
Yeah,
barrier anymore. And
exactly.
speaking about that, let's talk about data stacks. As far as understood, data stacks is changing the game in the AI space with its vector, what is called database, and
Yeah,
tools for real-time data. So you're the head of engineering there, focusing on, as far as understood, vector search and AI, correct?
yeah, yeah.
So, can you explain a bit more about this vector databases and vector search that many AI companies are talking about right now?
Yeah. So vector databases has been there for a while. It has become more relevant, more prominent, more talked about after the Gen AI stuff. So the way think about a problem when you search about a job, right? Or when you search about when looking for something on Google, you basically do a text search. And historically, what it has happened is that it will find you the document which mentions about the text that you are doing, right? So if you're looking for something about podcast, how to create a podcast, you're gonna say how to create a podcast, and then Google will surfaces that for you, right? But then you do the subsequent search, the search loses the context. So the vector search and the like which is powered by vector databases is that how do you do the semantic search where you look for the documents that has the meaning and is aware of the context, right? So one example, for example, one of the DataStax customers that does um, is like if you're looking for job search, for example, right? Historically, you would say, I know Java, I know C++. I'm going to look for those jobs, and then you're going to look at the description. But imagine an experience where you just upload the resume and the job search, the platform actually matches the jobs open jobs based on your resume, and it comes up, and it will not only look at the keywords like language and stuff, but like what are the problems you are trying to solve, right? Especially in the things like in non-tech sector, where your personality, how you interact with your team, your background, your all this stuff matches a lot. Like with the semantic search, you can do a lot more higher quality matching between job opening and the candidates, and vice versa. Instead of candidates looking for particular job, you can say I'm looking for this kind of role where I can be part of the team, and the team has these criteria, kind of thing, right? So that you'll get a lot more contextual search. So the idea behind with the vector database and vector search is that allows you to look through the piles of documents and images. It doesn't necessarily have to be the documents, the images, videos as well, and it will show you the similar context that what you're looking for. So what happened is that with the OpenAI, the language models that came in, the way it works is that you have a, let's say, a food review, for example. So what you do is that you would hit the language model to create the embedding, which will translate that food review text document into vector, a mathematical representation of that. And that machine learning model that translates the text document into a vector is basically trained to do it in a way that if I when I give it a next document, and it's a very similar to my previous document, then they will mathematically be very close to each other. So next time when I search for, okay, I've looked for this review about a hotel or food, I'm looking for similar reviews, then it is not being based on the actual text search, but it is based on the intent and the meaning of that review that was given, which is a lot more powerful, right? Now the historical databases like Postgres, I know, like Cassandra, Elasticsearch, and all the stuff. Um, they they didn't have these capabilities. So now what we have done is that we have this ability to store a vector type in the database. Then you can do the search. Then you can build, build a set of APIs to power those search, right? Then you, as a customer of this database, you simply basically use this database as you would use any other databases, but you will get this sophisticated search capabilities, right? So that's what vector search is. It's more about not simply looking at the matching keywords and things like that, but to give you high quality search based on your intent, but it's also aware of the context. So one example, for example, very simple, and this become really popular. We launched this app called tswift.ai to celebrate the birthday of Taylor Swift. We launched this
Mhm.
tswift.ai where you can
Okay.
ask questions about Taylor Swift,
Mhm.
right? And you can say like, what are the top songs of Taylor Swift? And then you can say, um, summarize the song for me. Like, what is the meaning of the song, for example? Then it will do use the language model to define like what is the intent of the song, kind of thing. It's pretty cool. You should try it. You should try it. It's called tswift.ai, and that shows you that if I don't know much about Taylor Swift, but when I try the site, at least I can ask the questions as if I was asking someone about Taylor Swift, right? But that's amazing. So that's the kind of problem you can solve with the vector search and vector database.
And speaking about hiring space, right? You mentioned this already, but I know that you I read this case study on your blog about this company that's called Restworld or something,
Yeah, yeah, Restworld.
which uses this AI to make hiring in the hospitality industry, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
They work in that space. So you use like a vector search there, right? And you use this AstroDB, or that's the
Yeah,
database that you
yeah.
you were talking about, right? So that's. Can you maybe give some even a bit more examples on how it works in the recruitment space on this specific example? I'm
Right,
really
right.
curious on this.
Exactly. So Restworld falls into this category of like hotel, restaurant, and catering business, and they are based in Italy, and so they have this. Like most of the companies, they have lots of people who are looking for a job and things like that, and apparently they were not getting very high quality candidates through this, and lots of resumes were coming up. They were wasting a lot of time. So I think I briefly alluded to these use cases accidentally, actually. So this is exactly what they did. So if you go to their site, you will see there are two options. If you're a job seeker, then it will allow you to upload your resume. It doesn't ask you anything. It simply uploads your resume, and then it scans the resume, and then it will show you the job descriptions matching those resume, and vice versa. If I am the employer, then basically say I'm looking for this kind of profile, then it will do the vector search on the resume that has happened, right? And you can see this is not a sophisticated modern Silicon Valley software company. They are hiring people for hotel and restaurant. That's a very sort of a legacy, quote unquote, industry, right? And then you can see they are using it, and they're being very productive about it, actually. And so it was also inspiring for us to see that the technologies that we're building is making the life of job seekers and the
Hmm.
employers better, because they're
Better.
finding a better match with each other, right? So
Yeah.
that's what it is. And the way it works is that they have a resume. When they upload the resume to the platform, it hits the language model to get the embedding, which gets stored in the Astra DB, which is our cloud-based database
Hmm.
services to do the vector stuff. And when the employer looks for it, I'm looking for something, this requirement, we use the same language model to get the embedding for that, and then we'll do the vector search on that, right? So that's
Hmm.
that's the details of like the how it works internally. But the use case is like fantastic. You don't need to. And the beauty of this is, unlike historically you would have to create machine learning models to train this and do all the stuff. None of this thing. Everything is sort of like API driven. Astra DB, you can just use the API to insert the resume. You can use the language models API to
Hmm.
insert the
Hmm.
embedding. I don't have to have a machine learning engineers on your team to do this. This is just bunch
Mm-hmm.
of like connecting the dots together, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that has been the beauty part of it. That's why not only the hotel industry, but like a couple of other use cases that we have in India, for example, there's a company called Physics Wala, which allows a student to prepare for entrance examination, right? And that has been historically been very expensive because you have to go to a center and you have to have the money to afford it. Now people can open the app, open app. Almost everybody has a mobile app. They can go to the physics wala and they can ask questions about physics. They can ask questions about math, right? And it uses vector search to basically scan, search through all the relevant documents and tells you the answer that you're looking for. That itself, like if I'm a student, that saved me a couple of hours of reading chapters, and it tells you in a way that you can understand, right? That's been like, so like that's another use case that we are very happy about it. So what you can see here, Vit, is that you have the hotel industry, you have the classic training online, sorry, not online, the education, job training, entrance training industry. We have the healthcare people trying to use this product to take care of the folks at home. It's just variety of use cases, and none of these people have machine learning and data science engineers, right? So I guess pointer to your audience is that the way you make yourself more relevant to this growing trend of AI
Mm-hmm.
is that you don't really have to be a PhD with machine learning to be able to get these
Yeah.
jobs. You just
Yeah,
have to
that's
know
true.
enough to understand when to use it and how to use it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because everything is available as APIs and services, yeah, and you can use these services to build something really, really nice.
Awesome. This really awesome. And so this AI, this data integration constantly kind of evolving, right?
Right.
And probably my last question to you, what is the big like a move for data stacks, so like a next move, and what projects are you currently working on?
Yeah, so the biggest one as AI is taking shape is mostly around the security, the privacy of data, right? The thing is that when you use the machine learning models powered by OpenAI or Google or Vertex and all this stuff, right? You are using their API to do this embedding thing that we talked about, right? But you really don't want to give them your data, right? Especially you're into the healthcare, you cannot give the your patient's data and things like that because it will be violation of privacy, right? So you want to build a solution where you're able to use this language model capabilities, AI capabilities, but you still want to have a control of your data. So there are lots of design patterns, especially something called RAG, which RAG model, where you hit the language models for the embedding and things like that, but you enrich the responses from the language model with the data that you have without storing your private data, domain specific data on the cloud services that you still have the control of, right? So the advantage of companies like DataStax is that we are a database company. We are a real-time AI database company where so you store your data, you still have your control of the data that you do, but then you hit OpenAI to get the embedding, or if you hit the Google's Vertex language model capabilities, but your data is not getting stored there, right? So that's the differentiator we have, is like you as enterprise customer, you as any for them any customer, you want to have control of your data. Data is, the good quality data means you get a good quality, yeah, and you don't want to share that with with the cloud providers, right? So our all of the effort that we're trying to do is that how much of um, these storage and the search and capabilities, high level API, that we can do it so that our customers have more control and very less data leave their perimeter. So to build the solution, right? So our focus is around that mostly these days.
And that's awesome. I guess we're good for today. I still have a bunch of questions regarding AI and those use cases that I noticed on your website. So, but probably we should do round two. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Sure.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Rob, for sharing your insights. We wish you and DataStax all the best in your journey. Thanks a
Thank you,
lot.
Vic. Thank you.